welcome to the on Wax. G'day and welcome to Rainbows on Wax episode 6. My name is Alex.
And I'm Steve.
We're here to extend our previous conversation on being an independent artist in the modern age and hopefully offer some more advice, extend from our other advice. I guess the episode is out there, so people have given some sort of feedback on what they gathered from it, what they didn't gather, what we need to talk more about. I guess one thing which we touched on at Music Club last night was catalog. We sort of, we spoke about albums, making albums, and the philosophy behind making records. If there is more to it than just the idea of making a record, especially these days where we're all told we need to make singles. Singles is the only thing that works, and maybe that's true. Maybe it is the thing that works, the thing that breaks artists, but maybe there's an intention behind, making a record that actually brings out the best singles in people. And I think regardless, it's a good place to start.
Yes. There's definitely no one shoe that fits all.
No.
And if you can find a way to do something consistently, that's consistency is key, right? And
in any business, which I guess is what we're touching on here, is music business.
Yes.
And obviously the creation of music. So basically my idea was that, sure, you don't have to go and, make a record or have this, lingering kind of pressure, I guess, of making a record. But inside of all of us, we probably want to make a record. I just feel like if you're an artist, it's got to be one of the coolest things to do.
Yes.
And I know that you might be kicking yourself if you just go and make a record and drop the entire thing. You're not giving each song an opportunity to kind of have its own moments. So I think they're two sort of separate conversations, two kind of separate ideas. But the idea behind making a record starts with writing the music.
Yes.
So if you need, let's say, 12 songs, I guess is an average album. I know you probably get a little bit less. I'd say anything less than 8 kind of starts to fall into EP realm. And I mean, then the sky's the limit. Do you want to drop 40 tracks on a record? Be my guest. But I'd say 12 is feels like a good amount of songs to be on an album. But to get to 12 songs, maybe you need to write 40.
Yeah.
You might get lucky. You might be able to do 20, 25, I'd say. I'd say rarely would there be an artist out there that writes 12 songs and every single one
hits,
is good.
It is rare.
Even if you're not finishing songs, even if you've got, say, 40 ideas, and of that, you go and finish 12 of them, not every single one needs to have every single thing finished on it. There's no need. If you can tell this song's not for us, not for the project or whatever, just leave it. It's not a big deal. You might come back to it years later and be like, oh, this is actually something I want to finish and add more to. But yeah, if you didn't, there's so many scenarios where I've gone in to write with somebody and we've started a song and kind of gone, you know what, maybe this isn't the right vibe. And then we start the next one and it is the vibe.
Yeah.
But if we'd just either kept going on the first one, we'd kind of be at the end of the day and go oh, this isn't really going to work anyway, so what's the point? But maybe we wouldn't have gotten to that second song either if we hadn't have just sort of started the first one. If you procrastinate all day.
It's good to get those ideas out. If they're lingering, just put them out.
Yeah.
Not release them necessarily. Like you said, you totally can do that, but just get it onto paper or into a door or whatever you need to do to get it out.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's some sort of spiritual benefit.
Yes.
To getting the song, getting the idea out onto paper, what does it do? Does it unlock the next song? Is it just like a diary entry? Like there's a million reasons as to why it's just a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when it comes to, you know, making a record, releasing your own music, the whole idea, I guess, is like, I think more artists should start this whole process with the idea of making an album. And yes, when it comes to releasing it, it's totally separate what we do with that. We'll talk about that in a second. But when you sit down and you're going, okay, like I'm ready to release music this year. I've been playing a few gigs. You might have a song or two out there already. You might have a handful of songs out there already. Mm-hmm. Sit down and go like, what does an album sort of mean to me? And I know we've spoken about this in sort of previous podcasts, so we don't need to go into it like in too much depth. But I would say, you know, just start writing, build up that bank of songs. And then when you sort of got the bank of songs and you've gone, okay, these ones are trash, these ones are rad, then you can really start your plan.
Yes. Then
you can sort of go, all right, here's 12 that I really like, and you can start to work on your release plan. Mm-hmm. When we're separating these two sort of mindsets, especially being an independent artist, you've got to have both. You've got to have both hats and go, now I'm songwriter, Alex, and I get to just be songwriter person and vibe out, drink tea, be in studios, hang out with musicians, have heaps of fun, not worry about things, hopefully. And then when it comes to releasing, you have to put your other hat on and go, all right, this game is sales and marketing. You know, as sad as it is, it transitions, you know, so your song becomes a product and you've got to push your product out there.
And that can be the trickiest side to it. Like understanding your market, right? Understanding your fan base and how to deliver it to them so they consume it in the right ways. Yeah. And, you know, the goal is for them to share it too.
Yeah.
You know, for them to speak about it to their friends and
exactly
promote it for you. So,
and we can't just rely on virality. No. You know, I think because we consume viral music, we think that's like a way of doing it. And sure enough, if that happens, great. Like, good on you. I know, like the song, which my children absolutely love, that what you know about rolling down in the deep. Like, this is totally anecdotal and could be completely not true, but I don't believe that the person that released that song was like necessarily an insanely dedicated musician. I believe he had another job. I think that's a part of the story of the song. He was like a welder, like a deep sea welder.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's kind of where the lyrics sort of came for the song. An Australian guy. So again, like releasing hip hop from Australia, one of the hardest things to do. But I'm pretty sure he was just kind of having fun, and it was almost like a hobby for him. I forget his name. Something. It's so bad. Wolf, Mask Wolf, I think it is.
Oh, right. I haven't heard of this artist.
You haven't? Yeah. Well, you know the song, right? You've heard.
No, I don't.
I mean, you must have heard this song.
It mustn't be that viral.
I mean, I was like looking at TikTok this morning, and there was like a video of Chevy Chase like dancing to this song, and I was like, "This is still viral. This is still a thing."
Okay, it's hitting.
It's still going. Like, and I forget what it was called, but you know, similar, I guess, name to "Rolling in the Deep" by Adele. Anyway, this song sort of went crazy viral, massive hit all around the world. Hip hop out of Australia. Like, rarely do we see hip hop artists getting out of Australia. We've got our hometown heroes for sure. But you know, this song just went gangbusters all around the world. There was no like plan for it. It just happened to be a song that works. And again, too, like some artists who really overthink things, maybe that's like what's stopping you from sort of going viral and just having fun. Like, I feel like this guy was just having a really good time as his hobby. Making this song about his life. You know, in a lot of senses, it's a really kind of cheesy hip hop song, hence probably why a lot of children like it. Anyway, it went crazy viral. I don't think it's something we all should rely on. So I think what we need to talk about more so is like things that you can rely on.
Yes.
And in marketing, first step is got to be free marketing.
Free marketing. Using the tools we have.
Yeah.
Our online presence is probably the easiest, not easy, but the most accessible way for us to put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
So TikTok, Instagram, whatever it might be that you're so used to using, just hone in that niche for yourself and use that platform for what it's made for. And if you can learn the ins and outs of it in a way that is just going to allow you to be consistent in releasing, your content, even if it's just you playing the guitar to the camera, like people consume that stuff.
Yeah. I'd even say like, the kind of, really not overthinking it. I think it's got to be the biggest struggle for most artists is by the time they start to maybe get a little bit of attention, someone's like, oh, I really like your music, or you've been doing it for a really long time because, when you were younger, someone was like, oh, you can sing, you can play guitar, like you can do these things, you're really good. And that gets in your mind. Mm-hmm. And so then you're like, oh, maybe I can do this as a career. Mm-hmm. And so whatever stage you are in this, there's got to be this sort of beginning point. And that beginning point, I think, is something to really look at. Mm-hmm. Like what excited you about making music? What excited you about like showing people music? And early on, we don't have the fear of like rejection. Mm-hmm. We don't have that sort of fear of like, will people like this? Mm-hmm. Is this cool? We just kind of go like, oh, well, this is all I've got.
Yes.
So I'm going to put it out there.
It's like a kid finger painting for the first time, right?
They're just, like I got kids that come home with their drawing, like, look at this. Like, they're so stoked that they've like created something.
Yes.
And the stoke just rubs off on you.
Yeah.
And you're so stoked for them. It goes in the fridge. You're really proud. And, every week they come with something new and, the old thing goes in the bin.
Yeah.
But
that's a great mentality to latch onto, like through your whole creative career, like that childlike wonder of creativity. Like, we let ourselves become so clouded by judgment, and society forces itself onto us in this like subliminal way that it just destroys that,
It does. How many philosophies, Buddhism, lots of these like sort of ancient philosophies talk about remaining childlike, remaining curious. It has to be like the number one thing. It's something I've always like prided myself on.
Yeah.
Even though I can be an adult when I need to be. I hate it. I hate being an adult. It's like the worst part about life is like the whole being an adult, growing up, doing the responsible thing. It's the dumbest shit. Way more fun to just kind of be a kid and like wake up every single day and it's like, oh, I don't have a problem in the world. Mm-hmm. Maybe not the best way to live all the time, but definitely it is in music and definitely is in creativity. Yes. I remember with my band, this would have been in Brisbane, and I hadn't really like, I sort of had a band when I was younger, and then we kind of stopped, we broke up, whatever. Mm-hmm. I went to do like sound and other things, and then I met a buddy of mine called Nate, and he was like, well, I play guitar, like let's play some songs together. And he was, I guess, like a model or something at the time. So I guess he had like a few followers online. He wasn't like an influencer. There wasn't really that culture back then. But we were just like so stoked on each other being able to like play guitar. Mm-hmm. And probably 18 at the time, 19. So we're not young, we're not adults yet either. So we start playing guitar, filming ourselves, playing covers, and people started to like really take notice of it. Mm-hmm. They were just stoked on us, and it was bad. Like if I was to look back at it now, like I'm sure those videos could be somewhere. I doubt they exist. But arguably, it wasn't very good. Mm-hmm. But it didn't matter. Our friends were stoked. Mm-hmm. Like they liked it because they were like, oh, you're playing probably emo covers or something like that. Yeah. Two dudes with acoustic guitars. Probably just learnt the song.
They enjoyed that energy coming back at them.
Yeah.
Like that freedom of creativity and exactly.
And then that sort of like was what introduced us to other people because like our friends had seen it and they were like, oh, we want to be a part of this. Like, can we come play with you? Yes. So somebody else came. I think it was Chris came, and then, you know, Robbie came, and then I think it was Jeff at the time came, was like, well, I'll play drums for you guys. And then eventually ended up being Pete Bosworth on drums. Because he just saw the band and loved it. But it was just this fun, dumb thing. We didn't care about anything. We didn't care about like, you know, selling shows out, even though we did. We didn't care about the industry, even though they gave us attention. We just didn't care. And we had fun the whole time. It was, you know, one of the funnest experiences of my life. And I feel like it fell apart when we started to try and take it seriously. Like,
isn't it
that's
funny how that always is the case, though?
Yeah.
You know?
And at some point you do. Like, honestly, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Like, maybe it is just better to kind of just like, you know, blindly sign record contracts and stuff. Who knows? And just continue to have fun and figure out ways to kind of make money along the way.
I think the skill does lie in being able to separate it. Like you said, just putting that creative hat on, putting the marketing hat on when the creativity's in a spot to be able to market it.
Yep.
You know, putting the producer hat on when you are trying to finesse what it sounds like and the arrangements and all of that sort of stuff. So it is a discipline that you do have to teach yourself.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things to unlearn as well, in terms of how we are compressed by society, and
especially now.
Exactly.
You know, like social media is a way bigger thing. We are all on social media. We all understand it. There's influencer culture. So we've got people building entire careers on being influencers. We also have the repercussions of like people putting stuff online, knowing that it kind of exists forever. But like, in what world has anyone ever kind of like found a successful artist? I mean, I'm sure they are when they get to the big Taylor Swift levels and stuff like that. But has anyone ever kind of gone, well, I saw your thing from 15 years ago on Facebook and you were pretty average back then. Like, no one cares. I guarantee that no one will look back at what you've done and bring it up if you're doing something really cool now.
Yeah.
And if they do, then fuck them. They're dumb. Like, they're just hating on you because you're succeeding and they're trying to like bring you down a peg or two.
Haters gonna hate, potatoes gonna potate.
I know, right? But it gets in our heads. Like,
yeah, it does.
Especially as adult artists. I think kids are a little better. Like, kids are just kind of blindly, you know, going into it and just being like, yeah, this is cool. This is fun. I want to put up videos of myself playing music. And they don't have as much care. I'd hope they wouldn't. But again, I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's kids out there with the pressures of social media and, you know, being told like, oh, you know, it better be good when you put it up there. It's like, well, just put it up and see what happens.
It's definitely easy to let that stuff get to you. But, you know, again, it's like coming back to that discipline and learning or unlearning the, you know, the need to care about that, you know. The subtle art of not giving a fuck. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is like the mindset of the artist when it comes to marketing. That's the mindset that you need to be in, train yourself with, and just kind of give a little less shit about stuff and just start to get stuff out there.
I want to talk about one artist in particular and who really did push boundaries, and especially through COVID, because like many major artists through COVID didn't make money. They couldn't tour, which was majority of their, you know, label money and all of that. They were barely selling merchandise because of no touring, etc. One artist that really inspired me was this rapper called Russ. I think he's New York based. Don't quote me on that, but he owned his entire catalog. He was able to produce himself. He was producing other artists as well. But he had his home studio set up. He kind of set this goal of putting out a song a week. You know, that's a pretty ambitious goal. but he was in a stage where he was able to quickly throw ideas into his setup, write on the fly, rap to it, basically create, mix, produce, mix, master his own stuff, put it on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
He moved out of SoundCloud, went on to TuneCore, and kept up that consistency of putting a song out a week. And he put 300 tracks out.
Yeah, wow.
I think it was before COVID. Took to social media, started as he would finish his song, he'd just be filming himself kind of singing the chorus or whatever, just lip syncing it, not actually singing it. And those simple things of him being able to show up consistently in these subtle little spaces that he'd found easy for him.
His name is not La Russell, is it?
No, it's just Russ.
Just Russ, yeah.
Italian-American fella.
Yeah.
But he, 300 tracks, he was able to, he blew up. Quite quickly off the back of that. And he was the only artist that made money through COVID because he owned all of his streaming.
Yep.
And post-COVID, he was able to leverage that entire catalog to, I think it was Columbia Records or maybe it was Warner. I can't remember, but...
And he sold the catalog?
Well, he didn't sell the catalog. He just gave a percentage away for their marketing strength.
Yeah.
Now he's toured the world twice.
Yep.
He's massive in the Middle East, and he'll do shout outs in the music to the Middle East girls. And, it's just this he found this formula that just totally worked for him.
Yeah.
And he was able to completely leverage everything that he'd built,
Yeah. So making a big catalog, building an audience the right way. I mean, how many artists have succeeded through SoundCloud? Like a lot.
And so many of the major artists are still trying to recoup. They owe money.
That's right. And you can, so if you are an artist, that produces, mixes, does everything themselves, you're able to engage with distribution companies at smaller percentages to just engage with their marketing team, which if they're associated with major labels, it's basically the same team. And I wonder if some people are kind of aware of that. If you're not needing the broader help of a record label, you can actually go in and sign contracts that is just 20%, 25%, I'm pretty sure it works on a scale. The more help that you want from them, the more man hours and team and money it's going to cost them for people working.
Slide the scale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of go in and go listen, I don't need help producing the album. I don't need money to make this music. The music's made. All I need is help from your marketing team. So the risk is lower. Rather than you going to a private independent marketing team, which they do exist, you're up for the money that it's going to cost to work with that team. And it may not work. Whereas at least if you engage like this, it's a percentage base. So if it works for everyone gets paid. If it works for no one gets paid. So the risk is a lot lower, in signing that away. Fair enough, you might be signing away more money in the long run. But that's just a risk, you as an individual have to figure out if you want to take.
Totally.
Do you want to spend 20 grand up front? Or do you want to give away 20% of your music and... in the long run, you might be giving away 100,000, but you may not have made that money without the team anyway.
Exactly.
So it's hard to sort of to judge what that is.
It is an investment. Yes.
A big independent artist I follow, which is why I brought it up, is La Russell.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know his music that well. I've listened to a few songs, but I'm really more interested in his social media. I followed him on Instagram for a long time, and he's fiercely independent. Has had offers to be signed to major labels, but basically he does all these great things. So he's got a backyard. I think he's from LA. I know he's got a backyard where they do shows. So there's a little stage he's built out the back. And whenever he does do shows and tours, he has a sliding scale for payment.
Right.
So basically he kind of offers people the ability to pay what they want or what they can afford. And he says so often, people are paying sometimes $100 because they just want to donate. They want to donate to his cause. They like it. you know, and he says some people can only afford $5 or $10 and that's all they pay.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's sort of things that he has like mailing lists and groups where people obviously are getting first access to these kind of gigs. They're not massive shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you follow Russell, he often posts his earnings.
Mm-hmm.
He's like pretty transparent with like how much money he's making from the shows, how much money he's making from selling CDs. Because he does always bring it sort of back and go like, listen, I don't stream very high. You can see the streams, they're not massive. Like they're not bad, but they're not huge. But he's like, this is the CDs that I've sold.
Yeah.
And he's like, from every CD I'm selling, you know, and again, he does the sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
If you can only afford $10, that's what you pay. But some people are happy to go, no, I love this guy. Here's $100. Like, give me the CD, get a T-shirt, get access to a show.
Yeah.
Things like that. And he's made quite a good income and created pretty good business. I think he's even gone further into creating apps that independent artists can use to basically use his systems.
Yeah, right. That's a way to monetize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And that's, you know, a crazy thing too. Yeah, getting into app development and stuff like that. That's probably somebody else's podcast you can go and listen to about figuring that out. I have no idea. I'm sure it's really expensive. But I think it is something that, you know, like a Patreon, for instance, you know, for being an independent artist.
Mm-hmm.
I was even talking to Bud Rokeski about this the other day because he was thinking about getting into Patreon or just having his own platform.
Yeah.
In which people can subscribe to his life, I guess.
Yes,
you know, to his music. And they can go, you know, ideally I'd say you'd be wanting $10 a month off of people. Maybe $5, maybe 10, I guess.
You could tier the pricing per package.
Yeah, in
how
what
much
you're getting.
access and
But that's the kind of thing where, I mean, say if it was $10 a month and, you know, you were releasing a few songs every month, even a T-shirt or something like that, some sort of merchandise thing, direct, you know, conversations with people. If you had 1,000 people at $10 a month,
it's good money.
It's really good money.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it is all going to you as an artist, as an individual artist, not even as a band. You know, you're talking a couple grand a week.
Yeah.
Like really great income. And if you can be consistent with that and have that running for years, you know, it's a pretty cool way to make money.
Yeah.
And that's 1,000 fans. You know, what if you had 10,000 fans? What if you had 100,000 fans? Like, there's artists out there with millions of fans, you know?
I know that Patreon is adjusting their entire infrastructure at the moment too to kind of compete with all of the different things that are going on in the industry right now, and like subscription-based kind of access. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, but they're really focusing on the infrastructure around the follower and how you can kind of really give back to the follower, and like whether it is personalized kind of content for those specific people who pay a bit more of a premium price, like you were saying. Or, you know, but I don't think it stops at Patreon. Like, I think the follower, you know, if you're good at the short form content, like on TikTok or YouTube or whatever your poison is at the moment, like the follower is the fan. The follower is that person that's going to show up for you every time, and it comes from having that believability, having that branding around, or the personal brand around what you do.
Yeah.
Lots of prime examples, because we're on the topic of Russ. You know, Russ's personal brand was this underdog producer, rapper, you know, small Italian man, like, you know, doesn't really define in other people's eyes as someone like that, but he's found a way. You know? Bobby Alou's another one that's on the top of my mind at the moment, because Bobby, like, you look at him and he's just like, he's his own brand, right? you see the colors that he represents. You see the music and the representation of the culture and like the healthy lifestyle and you know. So
and that's what people are buying into.
100%. That believability and being able to show up in different ways. That is consistent and easy for you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you know, the other big part of that is your audience could be scattered all over the world. You know, like you don't know exactly where your audience is. It may not be your hometown, and that, you know, can really suck for you if you don't have like, I don't know, a big group of friends or something like. But you know, if it's worth writing music about, and you feel that it's worth writing music about, like your story will be resonated around the world. It's just about finding them and giving them the opportunity to, you know, partake in what it is that you're creating. And yeah, it's like, oh, I'm from Brisbane or I'm from Sunshine Coast. I can't find 1,000 people here on the Sunshine Coast to buy everything that I'm doing. And it's like, well, maybe there's only 20 people in each town that really like what you're doing. So find those 20 people from every town around the world and guarantee it'll start adding up pretty quick.
Yes.
But it is just about that. It's about how do you find them? What are you doing? Are you putting out the right amount of content? Are you actually trying these things like Patreon? Are you not just talking about them?
Yeah.
You know, are you actually trying things like Instagram and TikTok, not just talking about it? I feel like a lot of artists just get stuck in like talking about these things and not going and doing them.
Yeah.
And
the other thing that's really tricky is casting that wide net.
Yeah.
But then finding what does work. And I think it's something you kind of have to do early on. Like, be on Twitter, be on TikTok, be on Instagram, you know, all of the platforms at once. Maybe it's not so necessary, but like if you can cast a wide net enough to feel what those platforms can do, and if it does resonate, like that's definitely, like, follow your gut, you know?
Yeah.
I tried out Twitter for a while. I spent probably 2 years on Twitter.
Yep.
I found that it was a great voice. Like it really was voice driven and communicative kind of platform.
Yeah.
I'm very visual in a sense.
Yeah.
Like I found myself coming back to Instagram more because I just love to kind of speak through other people's music and you know, use content, you know, film stuff and that sort of thing, where Twitter made that a little bit hard.
Yeah.
You know, Twitter kind of worked in a sense where you could create a conversational space like this, but on an international spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, so somewhat you can cast that wide net to kind of find, you know, have a taste of different things. And definitely haven't tried Patreon myself.
No, I haven't either. But I mean, I'm not a product as well.
Exactly.
So it's sort of different. Like, you know, this is definitely... I listen to podcasts and, you know, I know a lot of podcasts will have Patreons as well.
Yes.
Like some of the podcasts that I follow. And to get all that extra content, you've got to go and pay for it and buy it. For me, though, like, I haven't engaged in it because I haven't found the need. I just like the podcast. That's enough for me.
Yeah.
But these people are making money. They're talking about it. I'm hearing them. There are some really successful people that use Patreon because they do have a fan base out there that really want to engage further. So it does work. Even though, for instance, I'm not a consumer. I don't use Twitter. I like TikTok. I like Instagram. You know, I barely kind of use Facebook unless it's like Facebook Marketplace or something like that. Those things are definitely for me. And I'm finding music on Instagram. And I know that I'm not like a big record label executive, but I reach out to artists if I like their music and hear it. And I guarantee you record label executives, marketing executives, distribution places will find music that way too.
100%.
They'll find you, you know, if you have a song and it has like a little moment. I'm not saying it has to go like crazy viral, but sometimes it can just be a good song and it might get 100,000 views or 1 million views, which really isn't that much. Some of these songs get crazy amounts of views. You know, you will find that people will reach out, like whether it's other artists like who are successful and go, come play on my tour. If you just hadn't done it though, like guaranteed no one's going to hear it. Like that's just the whole thing. It's just to just get off your ass and put something out there. Again, I know like there's a lot of strategy behind sort of quality and things like that. I would say like you just start and then start refining how it looks, how it sounds. I'd say sound is maybe more important than the way that it looks. Like if it sounds like, if you can't really hear it, like, and it's a song and you're trying to promote a song, like it's sort of the main thing. I would say the visual aspect of it, if it's grainy or if it's like maybe not the best angle or, you know, not the best lighting, probably not the end of the world. I'd say that if it was really good angles, good lighting, good everything, and then a dodgy song, maybe that's not going to work either. So I'd say just having a decent sound. You know, I'm sure there's heaps of things, like whether or not you record it into your computer first and overdub to it, you know, like just record your little demo or record it on your phone in a quiet room and then just sort of sit there and film it, play it back and pretend like you're doing it live. Like there's kind of easy ways to fake that. It doesn't need to be like a full on live performance. But that's really where it has to start for all independent artists. You know, look at Post Malone, the song White Iverson blew up on SoundCloud. And, you know, his story is kind of history now. Like, obviously a very successful, very famous artist, but was quite, you know, obviously had a song out through SoundCloud. Sorry, not Spotify. I don't know if I said SoundCloud or Spotify, but yeah, out through SoundCloud. People found it that way. And then suddenly, you know, he put out his next single, like followed it up, backed it up with more songs. I would argue that he probably had, you know, his next song, Rockstar, ready to go. Because he'd probably been writing a lot of music and, you know, has a bank of really great songs. And then maybe with the attention, maybe then he basically probably had record labels and different, you know, influential people to listen to the music and go, that's the one, that's a great one, that's your next single. You know, so you get that next step of help. But if he had just released that song and it's gone crazy viral and nothing else, like ready to go, like would his career have been completely different?
Probably,
you know?
right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Like if he's then sort of gone, oh shit, I got to write more music. This is the one that went viral. I got to keep writing more like this. Like maybe it's not going to work. So again, it just brings us back to this whole point of like, get your music ready, write lots of music, have all this content ready, have 40 odd songs sort of written so that you can pick 12, go in with that intention of a body of work, even though it's going to come out as singles. And then you've got all this sort of great content if something does start to work. If people are paying attention to your music, you're finding your zeitgeist moment, having that lightning bolt moment, you know, in society or in your community. That's the thing that you're waiting on. And yeah, these are the conversations I think you have to be prepared for when that's going to happen.
All whilst building that personal brand along the way, which kind of they coincide.
Hopefully they coincide, yeah. Hopefully it's sort of like, you know, yeah, whatever it is you're wearing or what you're talking about, like hopefully it's
using
sort of,
your voice and the imagery and, you know, it can be daunting. Like a lot of people are afraid to show up in that way. A lot of people see a really beautiful, like, Instagram page, for example, and they'll mimic it in their own way, but the authenticity gets thrown out the window because it's not human. You know, there's no communication, there's no voice that is showing up in that sense. And this is something that I've felt for sure. Like I definitely had to learn this sort of thing, and like definitely love showing off artworks and concepts and visual side to all the music that I do. But it was like this podcast is a prime example of a marketing tactic that can build trust around what we talk about. And you know, it's it goes back to what we were talking about on the other episode about the two main things that are going to make you succeed, and that is the communication and community.
Yeah.
And you need one to support the other.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
definitely,
you know, especially when it comes to community, you see communities grow, like even just up here on the coast now. Like, I mean, unless I'm really unaware, I don't think there's another music podcast on the Sunshine Coast.
I don't know.
I mean, there might be, and just haven't heard about it. I don't think so. I'd say if there's, you know, any sort of successful podcasts that are running from the Sunshine Coast, probably more in other areas.
There's a few creatives kind of podcasts, which were quite cool.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff going on. I know, like, you know, we had Nick and Nick Broadhurst and his wife Melissa. We had Nick into the music club to chat about things, and they obviously run a very successful podcast, and obviously write books and all sorts of things, you know. And these people are on the Sunshine Coast, running their business from the Sunshine Coast, doing very well, you know, making money, kicking goals. It can be done. The thing is, like, you know, even with this podcast, this is just to have fun, talk about music, talk about ideas. It's completely opinion based. There is, you know, observations that we're really putting down here. I don't think anyone that I've even met in the music industry has some sort of like, here's the formula, one way to do it.
Exactly,
like, it
right.
doesn't work.
Yeah, there's no one shoe that fits all.
No.
Yeah.
Especially like when it comes to music. And we spoke about this last night, like making pop music is a whole nother thing. We're here to talk about independent music, alternative music, you know, small labels, small distribution companies. Like, these are small things in the long run, whether or not you are signed to a label or trying to work independently. It's all the same game. Some people have a team, some people don't. Some people need one, some people don't. I would say that so much is reliant on your content that you're building, and I think as musicians it's songs. And then just really start putting stuff out there. The best way is free marketing through Instagram, through TikTok. I think it's fairly similar. I've spoken to some marketing people, and they argue that it's better to try it on TikTok first, just because TikTok doesn't sort of block things like Instagram might.
Although that's changing. The whole algorithm with Instagram has changed to be more competitive with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Short form kind of rollover. They will favor the more unique to you style content.
Yeah.
So if you're sharing other people's stuff all the time, like all of those pages that are like, you know, they'll pull a whole bunch of artists and repost stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to be not as favored as original content now.
Ah, yeah, cool.
So all the more reason to create stuff and put it out.
Yeah.
TikTok is definitely king of short form.
Yeah.
You know, YouTube has latched onto that idea.
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing with Snapchat and then Instagram Reels moving in. They're all competing.
Yeah.
So I think it is just a matter of, you know, picking what kind of works for you and what you like. I guess we are influenced by what we consume. So
yeah, if you are on Instagram, maybe post on Instagram. It's easy as that.
Exactly, right.
Simple. Just start somewhere, and then if you start getting noticed, people will help you do the other things.
Yeah.
You know, when things start sort of picking up. I'd say a good resource too is Bacon Bits on Instagram. This American guy, really great content. Talks about making content, you know, all the time. Talks about his little tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Always got like real nuggets of gold. You know, one big one is always like the whole like artist sort of begging for pre-saves. And until you're a successful artist, like the whole pre-save game is just not a thing. It's like spamming people. Pre-save my song, pre-save my song.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something that's not necessary. You'd be better off just like putting up content of your music, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, you know, just building up, you know, your community. I mean, again, too, I don't want to like rag on any artist or anything, but I don't particularly like the whole sort of, you know, follow me or like follow this journey to get me
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, succeed.
Yeah.
Some people I think it works, some people it doesn't. Like sometimes it just comes across as a bit like, well, why aren't you just making music?
Yeah.
Why aren't you
Just do the thing.
Yeah, just like make a good song, and
Yeah.
then if it's good, I'll like it and I'll listen to it. Like
Yeah.
that's really the key, rather than just sort of being like, oh hey, like I'll comment on your video if you comment on mine.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like so many people think, oh, if I just build up numbers on Instagram and build up followers for, you know, using some other method, you're actually just becoming a master of like manipulating people. You know, becoming a master of making good music that people like.
Mm-hmm.
If people like the music, they're going to see it, they're going to share it. It's simple as that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to trick them into sharing it.
100%.
Like, if they share it and it's a trick, like, people are going to get it and they're not going to like it. They're not going to listen to it. It's not going to result in Spotify streams, or, you know, a label's not going to hear it and be like, well, I like this. I'm going to go sign this person. They're going to think, I got tricked into listening to this.
You're not going to buy a shitty car off a shitty salesman. Right?
No.
You'll buy a shitty car off a good salesman.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'd say, you know, yeah, again, just focusing on the content, good songwriting, you know, stuff that's true to you, being vulnerable in your music, like those things is what's going to translate, and just have fun with it rather than trying to compete with, you know, big businesses that are using these tricks to get people to follow, or clips to go viral on Instagram or TikTok, or these sort of influencers. Like, let influencers be influencers by manipulating people, which is essentially what they do. They're manipulating you to like their thing, to buy their thing.
Yeah.
That's where I think it gets so muddled with music, is like, your product is music, make it really, really good. Simple as that. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And if people like it, they're going to consume it. And if they don't, write another song and try again.
I want to talk about a friend of mine who's she kind of is an influencer. She's built two big businesses. One being like, she was a photographer, videographer, brand builder, content creator for a lot of companies, clothing, all that sort of stuff. On the back of that following, she launched a clothing brand, and I was talking to her about kind of her content strategies and like how she's, you know, what's working and what's not working, what's getting more reciprocated views and those sorts of things. And she said, like, they put lots of energy into dressing up models and getting them in the studio and making them look amazing and cool and, you know, hot and whatnot. And she's like, as much energy as we put into that stuff, it doesn't work as good as me just filming myself put the fit on at home.
Wild, hey?
Crazy. Like, that's where we're at, you know. Same with music. It's like the raw, authentic, personal brand behind the massive machine. Like, that's how we got to think, you know.
That's right. Like, it's leave that to Kmart and Woolies and Coles and
100%.
I don't know, these big, you know, fashion brands and things like that. Like, let them do that kind of marketing.
Yeah.
You know, your Taylor Swifts, your Katy Perry's, and let them do that kind of stuff. We don't need to compete in that world. We're never going to win anyway.
Yeah.
As you said, like, other clothing brands are finding the same thing, that just normal organic content, talking to the camera, being honest with your audience, being vulnerable with your audience. That's what's going to translate. And I guarantee you too, like, if you were to sort of start your Patreon, you know, and you're just talking about your life and not talking about like, follow me for this reason. Just talk about your life. Talk about what you've done today. People, like, that's why my wife loves mum influencers. You know, and genuinely, like, most of them are really real. Like, they're showing everything, sort of warts and all. Their wins, their losses, how hard it is to be a mother, you know, bullshit you put up with kids.
The hacks,
the mum hacks, you know, little ideas on how to fill an afternoon with an activity. And that's where, like, she's invested because it's real, and she goes, "Oh, well, cool. That's a great activity. I can do that with the kids. Like, thank you, like, for giving me something I can figure out." Whereas, like, I reckon any of the other ones that are sort of like, buy this, do this, buy our products, like,
painting the picture perfect life, like, everyone's too smart for that now.
Yeah, we know what's going on here. Yeah. Like, if that's the way you live, it's not real, and it's not for me. I don't want any part of it. Yeah. And 99% of us or more in the world, live pretty normal lives. We're not Kardashians and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So definitely building a catalog that you can leverage.
Yes.
Take 5 years to do it if you need to.
Yeah.
Just write, record, produce as much as you can.
Yeah.
Build your personal brand along the way.
Yeah.
So, get on an online platform, show up consistently.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do to show off your process and your realness, your rawness, and learn some of the biz. So, trial and error is probably the number one thing to do. Pull marketing tactics from different things, artists that you like, monkey see, monkey do, just make it your own.
Yep.
But yeah, those kind of 3 things I think will just make you succeed no matter what, you know.
100%.
And communication.
Communication, community. The 2 C's.
We need new t-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
Communicate my community to the community. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, tune in next week for another episode of Rainbows on Wax.
Thank you, guys.
And ask questions. We're trying to address questions to the audience if you're commenting on things, and we'll do our best to do research for the music club.
Yep.
And convey our opinion.
And we'll add a few resources into the show notes as well.
Yeah. Peace.
Rainbows.